Hi guys, Tara's back with you here. And I just want to say that if you are here watching this video right now, it's because you're supposed to be here. If you haven't been with me through the last 6 lessons that I've been doing, I would ask that you join me. But please stick around. We've been touching on the emotional body and, feeling versus reacting. That was last week's lesson. And so we are actually going to be going into emotional awareness practice. So before we do that, I'm going to ask that you please subscribe, put a like on that video, and, share the video. Or, you know what? Listen, there's going to be some of these things where I want to know how you respond to different situations. Are you reacting or are you responding? And how it is that you relate to your emotional body. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. Thank you guys for being here with me. And I really hope you guys get as much out of this as I do. It's interesting because I had started addressing a lot of these things probably about 16 years ago. And when I started seeing a therapist, I was unaware of how my emotions, how I felt about things, like why they were so important. A lot of times I would squash it down or I would ignore it, and then would pop up and I'd blow up and I'd be like, And so next week we're going to start going into the inner child. And that one it was really difficult for me to connect with that inner child. And so I'm really kind of excited to go into that. I'm actually filming this on Father's Day, on Sunday, and I'll be releasing it on Tuesday. But today's been a really tough day for me. I have had a lot of anxiety, but that anxiety is stemmed from something that I'm dealing with. And I had to sit with myself this morning and I had to feel it. Whereas previously and other times I would probably drown myself in alcohol or try to distract myself with other things so I didn't have to feel these emotions, because it's uncomfortable, it doesn't feel good. And a lot of my life I was told to not worry about it, just keep pushing through, whatever. And so I'm not doing that now, and I'm learning how to deal with it. I'm learning how to transmute the alchemical response. It's transmuting, it's transforming these emotions and learning how to incorporate them into my life. And it's been a long journey of healing, and I know I'm not done. Like, even what I'm feeling today, it's gotten better, but I know it's going to continue getting better. So we're going to jump into this. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be naming and mapping. And so what I'm going to do in the description of the video is I went and I looked up a lot of different, I guess they're called emotional vocabulary words, okay, that you can use. And, being able to identify where it's appearing in your body and what it is and how it's affecting you and where it's coming from. And those are all the different things that we're going to touch on. So my anxiety today, when I started feeling it, it was like that, the heart beating fast and the, the exasperation of like, oh my gosh, like, I don't like this feeling, and so it happened here in my chest. And so being able to map those things is really important for you to be able to identify it. Now, in previous times, I've gone over the different chakras in the body and how it corresponds to different aspects of our life. And so that's going to be important too. And I might be able to touch on those at a different time. But so the theme is going to be to feel is to reclaim your presence. Okay? So being present in the moment rather than living in the past or living in the future, the stress of what's going to happen tomorrow or the pain of what happened yesterday. We're going to be able to sit in the present moment. Okay? So when you learn to name them, you become fluent in your inner truth. Okay? You learn how to be like, okay, so I'm feeling this, but what is the truth behind what I'm feeling? And it is valid. Your feelings and your emotions are valid. And what I touched on last week was emotion. It's energy in motion, okay? Remember, we are energetic beings. We come from energy. And so it's very important that we understand how our emotions produce and or affect our surroundings and affect us, So let's keep going. So the core focus is going to be practice emotional fluency. So notice, name, and map. And then shift emotional overwhelm to emotional intimacy. So, today with that, the anxiety that I was feeling, I was able to say, okay, this is where it's at. This is what it is. This is why I'm experiencing it. And so I've been able to sit in it and feel compassion for myself and say, you know what, it's okay for those feelings. As you can see, I'm getting a little emotional because it's okay to feel those emotions, you know, and as I've been sitting in it, if I've calmed throughout the day, you know, and I've been able to sit with that, you know, we're going to be touching on it next week, but being able to sit with that little girl that didn't have her needs met it's been crucial for my healing and moving forward. So the core teachings that we're going to be looking at today are, you know, why naming emotion heals? You know, why does it heal? Well, I'll tell you, the act of naming it activates the prefrontal cortex of your brain. You know, I even saw on a reel the other day this, I'm pretty sure she's probably some kind of counselor or psychologist, but she started saying, stop for a second and listen to the quietest sound in the room, you know? And connect with that. Where do you feel that? What ear do you hear it in? When you breathe, what nostril? You know, and so when you are able to identify smelling, seeing, hearing, and where it comes from and where you're feeling, you're connecting your emotions and your senses with your body. And so you're actually activating portions of your brain. Let's see, naming separates you from identification. So I am not my emotions, I am feeling them, okay? So a lot of times you're like, oh, I'm an anxious person. No, you are not an anxious person, but you experience anxiety. And if you can learn how to map those feelings and emotions and be able to separate them from who I am as a person, I am a happy person, I am a healthy person, but sometimes I feel anxiety. Okay, but you have to be able to understand where they come from to be able to separate that from the identification of who you are as a person. So then Dr. Stan Siegel, he says, name it to tame it. And I love that because if you name it, you can tame it. Because if you know where it's coming from, you're like, oh, okay, this too shall pass. The next thing is mapping emotions in the body. So emotions equal somatic signature. So whenever we look at it, I touched on this a little bit last week, but when you have fear, you usually feel it like in your chest. You're like, there's a fear that it grasps you there. When you have anger, it's like in your jaw, you clench your jaws or your fists, you know? And then grief, you feel it in your throat or your chest. Have you noticed when you're sad or you're dealing with grief, somebody just passed away or something really intense just happened in your life, and it's like they say it's like a frog in your throat, or you know, that lump in your throat where you just feel like you're gonna cry, or like that pressure on your chest where you're just like, ugh. So you gotta remember that. And then we have to remember that emotional energy, when it's stuck, it means that we're disconnected from our body, right? And so in a sense, we don't have control over how we react if we aren't able to identify and map what our actual emotions are. And we want to be connected to our body, want to be in control of ourselves. You know, for the longest time, I did not know how to regulate my emotions. I was not taught. It wasn't until I started seeing a therapist and she started helping me to see these things that I've been able to gradually over time learn how to do it. And I'm still learning. So then we talk about the alchemy tie-in, and I keep going back to that. So in one of my posts over in YouTube, I have the hero's journey, and I have the alchemical stages that we go through as people as we grow and we learn and we advance in our spiritual path. And so if you want to go look over there, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. But we're actually going to be dealing with the albedo part of it, and it purifies reactive loops. Those patterns, those what we call generational curses, those different things. So it actually purifies that, because when we're able to identify, it doesn't stop the emotions, but you are able to get into control about how you react and respond to different situations when you're able to understand yourself. And so what we're gonna do today is, if you've been journaling, and I journal a lot, okay? I journal my dreams, I've been journaling my emotions or different things that have been going on in my life. But you know what we're gonna do is, I would like you to see some things that you can ask yourself. What am I feeling? Where do I feel it? And what does it want me to know? What does it want me to know? You know, when we stop and we ask ourselves those questions, don't think about it. Just start writing and see what your mind puts down on that paper. And it'd be amazing the things that you end up writing down. So observing emotion without suppression or over-identification allows it to transform, okay? So if we don't sit down and sit with those emotions, we automatically just gonna react. But if we sit with them, we're able to identify them, it's going to help us to transform them. And so I'm going to be posting, like I said earlier, I actually, I looked up some emotional vocabulary terms that you can go look at, and it might help you to map yourself. And maybe when you're journaling, you'd be like, you know what? Yeah, I was feeling this tension in my neck here, or my lower back, or I don't know, my shoulders, or my chest, or my stomach, or, you know, we all feel them in different ways. Only you are going to know how your body responds to certain emotions, and it's not the same for any two people. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off, and I thank you guys so much for joining me. And I hope to see you again. Like I said, we're gonna be dealing with the inner child. And see, all of these triggers that we experience as adults stem from when we were children. Unmet needs. And so I'm going to dive into that. I'm gonna be releasing that this next Thursday. And so I hope that you guys are getting as much out of this as I am. We're starting to get into the meat of a lot of this stuff. But this stuff is what helps us grow in our spiritual journey, when we become self-aware, whenever we, heal from those past hurts, and we start to learn that we are not what has happened to us. And we start being able to trust our mind and our body. So I love you guys. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday, and I will be seeing you guys soon.